Hi, my dear Astro friends. Here is a video about Mercury entering the sign of Sagittarius, which is going to be taking place on the 24th of November. But before we actually start exploring what Mercury in Sagittarius might mean, I would like to announce two things. One of them is that Black Friday is coming up, and therefore I'm going to be offering 50% off on each of my courses and webinars. And that will be starting today till the 27th of November. So grab the opportunity and try to capture the moment. Another thing which I'd like to offer is something to do with my membership. So if you would like to learn astrology with me, then there is possibility for that. You can sign up on my membership zone, and you will receive 3 webinars a month for the price of 1, basically. So if that's something you are interested in, then also go on my website, AstroViktor.com, and check it out. Now, there is no better time than to start studying astrology when Mercury is in the sign of Sagittarius. Sagittarius is something to do with spirituality. And Mercury, in my opinion, is one of the significators of astrology. And the reason being is because Mercury rules over the ability to spot patterns. And astrology is about spotting patterns. It's about looking at, for instance, Mercury cycles, which I recently made a webinar about, actually. And we explored the Mercury retrograde periods, and then we noticed that every third retrograde period is actually picking up the threads from the previous one. So meaning that, for instance, in 2018, you've got a retrograde Mercury going direct, let's say on 27 degree of Scorpio. 11 months later, that's exactly the spot when Mercury gonna go retrograde. So it's always picking up somehow an 11-month period, so probably which needs to be coming to fruition or that needs to be somehow finished. So therefore, I've decided to make that webinar to kind of prove that Mercury retrograde is not our enemy. It's about picking up the threads of something else. So if you are interested in that, then use the Black Friday opportunity to actually learn more about Mercury's cycle. Now, Mercury was in the sign of Scorpio, which was quite introspective. Probably we had to contemplate a lot. And now this time around, Mercury in the sign of Sagittarius is all about expanding that mind, stretching the mind as far as possible, because Sagittarius is all about growth and expansion. So therefore, while we have got this transit, which is only lasting for 2.5 weeks, but it's all about having plenty of ideas, placing the future somehow in front of us, meaning that we're going to start thinking about, where I come from and where I want to be in a couple of weeks' time, or in a couple of months' time, or maybe in 10 years' time. So there is this futuristic way of thinking involved with Mercury in the sign of Sagittarius. It's about wanting to make a big leap, thinking about where the future takes us. So we might start using more sentences like, what if I did this and that? So it could be sometimes a little bit about going back in the past as well, but it's about shooting the arrow as far as possible. We don't necessarily know where it's going to be landing, but it's going to be landing somewhere. Now, Mercury, even though from a traditional perspective, it is in a detrimental position in the sign of Sagittarius, which I don't necessarily agree with to 100%. One of the reasons why, because Mercury is the fastest moving planet in the solar system. And Sagittarius is actually a mutable energy, which means that Mercury has got some advantage going on in Sagittarius. It can be moving as fast as possible. It is not kind of like in a fixed sign where it was before, for instance, in the kind of sign of Scorpio, that I cannot really allow my mind to kind of blow up, and then I have to be very cautious, and then I have to step down a little bit. So Whenever you work with planets in detriment and fall, just be very mindful about them, because from a traditional perspective, they tend to be describing it as a glooming and your life is doomed, and it's not necessarily the case. Now, yes, detriment from a traditional point of view means catabolic, things tends to fall apart, not working too well, or the planets in those particular signs are off balance or can be nervous, not necessarily at ease. So there is some type of disunity, disorganization, corruption to the energy. And don't get me wrong, yes, when Mercury is in the sign of Sagittarius, the mind can be quite frazzled. Now, why I'm saying that? Because Sagittarius is a fire sign. So think about the flame which goes upwards. It kind of wants to climb the mountain. And Mercury is the planet which is able to travel between dimensions. So Mercury is a planet, basically it's Hermes, who were the messenger between the humankind and the gods. That's another reason why I believe that Mercury is associated with astrology, because it is all about downloading somehow information from the gods and translating them into understandable words. Now, this is definitely a risk-taking position because Sagittarius is a very optimistic, it has got faith, and Mercury just kind of the planet of curiosity. It wants to try new things. So therefore, this could be an indication that you are going to be taking risks this couple of weeks, and you might regret them later on. So that's one of the hardship about Mercury in Sagittarius, that you're going to have to spot patterns in a very quick way. Mercury is about making a decision, and Sagittarius is just seeing the silver line of everything. So Sagittarius is actually a double-bodied sign. Meaning that the first 15 degree is more humanitarian and the last 15 degree is more animalistic. Now, animalistic means that kind of it listens to the instinct. So especially when Mercury is going to be hitting that 15 degree, it's more about the instinctual behavior. It's more about not necessarily considering so much of other people's needs and so forth. So the fire always goes upwards. It wants to be climbing that hierarchy ladder. And maybe especially if you have been doing some Mercurian activities as a job, then you might want to be pursuing something. You might want to be achieving something. So maybe your business was hurt and now you are coming up with new ideas, where I want to go, where I want to be in a few weeks' time, or where to start. So it could be actually representing something to do with applying to legal citizenships or wanting to live somewhere else, and therefore I need to renew my passport. This could be actually a brilliant time for that. Just because Mercury is in a detrimental position, it might want us to watch out for the details. So how I spelled my name, for instance, or did I put down the right time of birth, and so forth, especially if you are having a reading. So making travel plans, I think, during Mercury in Sagittarius is actually a good thing, or wanting to relocate. Probably plenty of people will start considering that. Now, from a global point of view, it's very possible that Mercury in Sagittarius will kind of regulate again the way we can travel. Unfortunately, the reason why I believe this is because the final dispositor of this Mercury is still Saturn in the sign of Aquarius, which has just reached 7 degree and opposing a asteroid called Varuna. Now, Varuna is a demoted god. He is the god of oceans, rains, rivers, so anything to do with water. So especially this could be affecting like traveling by ocean liners and so forth. We will see, but I think Saturn in Aquarius still talks about social distancing. So Mercury entering the sign of Sagittarius, unfortunately, can bring such things. Now, Sagittarius, Mercury never kind of turns an opportunity down. Mercury is about analyzing these opportunities, but Mercury is a trickster. Sometimes it tricks us into making things look better than they are. So that's the little bit of a risk with having Mercury here. Now, one of the reasons why Mercury is actually called as a trickster is because when he was born, straight a couple of minutes after his birth, actually, he stole Apollo's cow herd. And he made these cows to kind of move backwards. And of course, he denied it. So that's why he is kind of like a trickster. Mercury represents your daily routines, your daily life. So kind of like your daily commuting in a sense. So for instance, that every single day you go to the shop or you go to work, you do that by bus, by underground or by car, whatever you are doing. Now, this Mercury in Sagittarius can actually talk about adapting to new policies or adapting to new regulation of, I don't know, how you can travel, or maybe it's talking about that price increase in the underground fares and so forth. But this Mercury in Sagittarius is all about expanding the scope, something which is more accessible in a sense. So, of course, Sagittarius has got this sense of optimism here. So, and Mercury is a speedy planet. It's almost at its full speed. So it might be about being able to pick up the speed a lot quicker. Mercury is the fastest planet, spends typically about 2.5, 3 weeks in one sign. So, and because Mercury represents your mind can be quite speedy. So on a positive note, it could talk about you picking up certain knowledge very quickly, but the danger of that is that your mind can be very scattered, or your mind is kind of alerted all the time. So kind of like running 24/7, because you see the like the ocean of opportunities in front of you, and then you're trying to pick the best option ever. It could be also about, because Mercury represents your way of communication, that you start a conversation and then you start talking about something else, and it kind of never gets finished. So these little things you're going to have to pay attention to. Mercury represents your thought patterns, and the sign change always indicates that our thought pattern is actually changing, the way we think about certain things. Now, Mercury in Scorpio was a little bit depressed. Now, in Sagittarius is all about becoming very optimistic. And Sagittarius is a sign of future. So it's about adapting to new things, which is actually coming into your life. So you might want to be looking at where the Sagittarius cusp in your chart, because you might be experiencing some type of new regulations in those departments. Maybe it's about new ways of communicating on social media. Maybe you just, you know what, I've never looked at my social media before, or I just looked at it once a month, once a week, and now I'm going to be noticing that I'm on the social media all the time, and I'm going to be posting pictures and so forth. Technology is definitely a huge part with this Mercury in Sagittarius, because the final dispositor and the immediate dispositor are both in the sign of Aquarius, which rules technology. So this could talk about technological advancements as well. So as I mentioned, yes, being scattered is a possibility, a very restless mind, surely. And remember that Sagittarius is all about spreading out its energy. So don't be shocked that people are going to get a little bit hectic around you, or become a little bit chaotic overall. Or I want to be doing a lot more things at once. And also Sagittarius is the sign of greed. So the mind can be greedy, meaning that, you know, like Frank Clifford mentioned in the in the Jupiter video, that Sagittarius can sometimes become disappointed when others are not approving of the ideas, or when others are actually disregarding, discrediting them, or they just don't support them. Now, this is exactly what the danger is with Mercury. You come up with all the big ideas, Sagittarius, bigness, and then you kind of get turned down. And that's where, for instance, the detrimental position can come into the picture. People are not appreciating all the goodies, what you come up with. Mercury never goes further than 28 degrees from the sun. So it means that we're going to be starting the Sagittarius season as well, because the sun is going to be entering the sign of Sagittarius also. And therefore, we also have the South Node there, and Mercury will be making a conjunction a couple of days after the Sun makes a conjunction to South Node. So there is so much letting go and emptying out, or spiritualizing things going on, especially the last 7 days of November. Mercury is about making connections, and Sagittarius is the divine energy. So it might be about making connections to the spiritual self of yours. It's about wanting to find a life purpose overall. Why was I born? What am I meant to be doing? It might be about making connections to foreign people a lot more. Maybe you're going to sign up on Zoom and then you're going to kind of make friends. Mercury somehow is associated with close people around you. Sometimes these are just the neighbors, the siblings, the relatives, but also it could actually indicate the close friends as well. Now, you might notice that you are reading a lot more articles, or you're downloading a lot more applications, for instance, because probably there is that hunger type of energy that I want my mind to be stimulated. So Mercury rules puzzles. But Sagittarius, the danger there is that, you know what, it just sees the bigger picture, but it doesn't pay attention to the details. So, you know, it's not necessarily a period of time when I'm going to be sitting down and then doing puzzles. It's more about being adventurous, getting out there, and then going from one spot to another. So Sagittarius doesn't have the patience for it. It just sees the bigger picture all the time. Now, this is definitely about opening up loads of doors, meeting new people, meeting gurus, meeting foreigners overall. Mercury represents the people being close to you. So you might notice that you are having a lot more beneficial or a lot more kind of encouraging conversations with your teachers, workmates, classmates, or even the butcher or the shop assistant at the shop where you do your daily shopping. So Mercury is Hermes, the traveler, the daily commute overall. So you might see that actually I'm going to be taking a bigger, I might find a shorter distance actually to workplace, or I like walking a little bit more, a bigger distance, because I kind of find pleasure in that. So Sagittarius season is always about encouraging us to see opportunity, and with Mercury to connect with people in my everyday life. You might get to know something intriguing about them. And you might find them very fascinating. Now, from a higher perspective, Sagittarius is definitely about the truth. So we can become very opinionated and we vocalize our opinions. So that could be another little danger here with Mercury and Sagittarius. Or I feel restless to find out the truth about something. And this truth is definitely coming from the fact that Mercury in Scorpio has done so much kind of like investigation and research. And now in Sagittarius, I want to spread that out, or I want to even further develop that. So you can get you can feel lifted from having conversations with a guru, for instance. There is this groundbreaking quality to this Mercury in Sagittarius, because the dispositor is in Aquarius, which is all about emotionally getting detached from any type of rules overall. There is this success-orientated mindset, or I kind of feel lucky, because Sagittarius is the luck. It shows the blessings in our chart. So you might have got this lucky mindset. You know what? I'm going to go and play the lottery or scratch card. I'm definitely going to be winning. Or yes, I'm going to be jumping into an opportunity because what can I lose? So it's definitely about finding out the truth overall. But remember that Mercury is all about your learning style as well. So it could be about wanting to learn something new or wanting to teach something to others as well. So a little danger of Mercury in Sagittarius is that we become an eternal student. And we don't see the possibility that Sagittarius is all about sharing that vision with others. So even if I learn something new, immediately I'm going to give something back to the universe, and I'm going to share that information with others as well. Another negative trait maybe with this Mercury in Sagittarius, that Sagittarius tends to overindulge in things, overdo things. So we can become very chatty, okay? Because Mercury is all about conversations. We can actually overstimulate our mind, and then we're just not able to sleep, for instance. Or maybe you are a person who likes being at home, and then all of a sudden you will notice that I go somewhere every single day. Now, Mercury rules the daily routine. So it could be definitely about, you know what, I really love that restaurant, and then I'm just going to eat there every single day. And then a couple of weeks' time, I'm going to notice that I started rounding up. So Sagittarius, even though it's a sporty sign, but it tends to eat a little bit more as well. So, and then going to these new places, one can become a routine. Also, it might be because Mercury is very curious overall. So it might be about wanting to find out everything. And then eventually I'm going to be overdoing them. Overdoing Mercurian things. So I spend way too much time on my phone, Mercury, or on social media, Mercury, and so forth. So another thing which is very Mercurian is the focal ability. But in the sign of Sagittarius, which is a mutable sign, so it goes from flower to flower, it might be very hard to focus. So again, the mental restlessness is coming up here. Can be a little bit of a chaotic period. It's definitely not about sitting down. Mercury here always wants to do something, starts doing new things, and then changes its mind a little bit later on. It could be about wanting to learn new skills, or maybe at work, you will have a trainee. So you're going to have to train someone new, or and with Sagittarius, the idea is that, yes, I'm teaching someone something new, but what can I learn from that person as well? So not necessarily looking down on the person. Your travel needs might be actually increasing. I just want to be going here and there. Mercury rules transportation. Sagittarius is foreign countries. So actually it could be the possibility that the planes are going to be overbooked, and there is going to be a little bit of a chaos out of that. Or as I mentioned, there could be all these type of travel restrictions coming up also, and there is chaos around that. Or it's very possible that the roads are going to be very busy. Now, Mercury rules anything to do with the roads and actually busy type of areas. Mercury actually was the god of gymnasiums and stadiums. So actually we might notice that those places will be very busy. It might be about that I want to be actually, because let's not forget we've got the holiday season coming up. in US, it's the Thanksgiving period, right? So it might be about me wanting to travel to familiar faces, wanting to visit relatives, or we just want to go on holiday overall. And all of a sudden we see that we just have got some type of issues of actually completing that journey. So possible actually that a car is going to break down, as in transportation. But you might just see, because Mercury is something to do with sales, so you might see that there will be plenty of sales, and then you're just going to get out there, and then you're spending your money, and then you're scratching your head later on. So seeking the truth with Mercury in Sagittarius is very important. Trying to put the puzzle together about a topic. Another one which might come up quite a lot is asking questions. And these are not questions like, where did you put my sunglasses? This is about questions about huge topics. So there is that philosophical side of questioning could be actually going on. Or you might notice that you're going to start asking more about the future. So maybe actually astrologers will become very busy. By the way, if you would like to book a reading with me, do so, because I've only have left few spots. I've got few spots left in December, and I think the first week of January is also booked up already. So if you would like to have, for instance, a solar return reading, then I recommend checking that out. Now, what else Mercury in Sagittarius can talk about? It might be about wanting to buy something. We might want to be trading, for instance, with foreign countries, and we want to be coming up with negotiations. It can actually talk about settlements in legal arguments as well. Or it might be just about wanting to sell your course, your education channels, for instance. It might be that you want to be getting your passport translated or any type of documents translated, which is very Mercurian topic also. Now, from a weather perspective, actually, Mercury is the god of winds. So it could actually create some very strong winds during the next 2.5 weeks. Mercury is also the god of soul guiding. And one of the reasons why is because he was the one who took the souls down to underground, or he had the ability to actually bring them up as well. Like Mercury did that with, for instance, Psyche. So Psyche went down underworld, and then actually Mercury brought him back up. Brought her back up, sorry. Mercury is about naming things, so we might be actually giving some kind of like big names to certain things. It could talk about negotiating with foreigners, diplomats, lawyers, solicitors, teachers, even judges overall. So if you need to be making any type of negotiations with one of those people, maybe it's about you wanting to postpone your exam, I would be choosing Mercury in Sagittarius. Mercury is definitely the strongest in mutable signs because it can be moving a lot quicker. But maybe one of the downfall of Mercury in Sagittarius is that kind of like Sagittarius, Mercury is aiming prematurely. So we don't know where we're going, we just go somewhere. Mercury is kind of like a boundary crosser. That's why actually it has got a planetary joy in the first house, because that's the borderline between this consciousness and the subconsciousness. So Mercury is able to travel between dimensions, and the sign of Sagittarius is definitely about becoming free-spirited, traveling between dimensions as well. Mercury rules over marketing. So you might want to be actually writing something. You might want to publish your book, or you might want to get interviewed for something. That's also very possible. Mercury rules over your hygienic routines. And in the sign of Sagittarius, we might start ignoring those. Now, it doesn't mean that we're not going to be having a shower for 2.5 weeks, But this could actually represent the period of time, if, especially if you have got OCD going on, you know what, I can't deal with that anymore. I need to just do little bits and bobs, something else, because I'm getting bored of it. And this could be also a fact, getting bored easily of doing certain things. Definitely Mercury in the sign of Sagittarius is very much about saying out loud your own truth. So that's why this constellation can become very opinionated. Sometimes it can become arrogant or blunt with that as well. There is definitely that broad-minded perspective to life. We can become quite chatty, or we are the explorer altogether. So it might be about that I'm going to be going to mountains. I'm going to go here and there, and then I do some exploration. Mercury in Sagittarius can become quite frank. It can be preaching a lot without any actual knowledge. So it is all about the moral code. It is all about bringing justice forward. And I'm going to kind of speak up for that. Remember, this Mercury kind of has got that cut, sharp tongue effect, because it's in a fire sign. So it says things a lot quicker than usually. Actually, this is a good period of time to start some type of sport activities as well, because definitely this Mercury is very very sporty. So Mercury is all about movements. So actually we might be able to see a lot more movement actually in the world. It can even go to demonstrations and stuff like that, or just we see kind of like people leaving countries, people traveling, or you just feel somehow restless overall. So Mercury in Sagittarius, I think it's an exciting time. One other thing which I'd like to mention with Mercury in Sagittarius, you know, Mercury collects the information. Sagittarius is very much about putting the dots together. Mercury recognizes patterns, Sagittarius spreads that information. Sagittarius is about not only seeing the facts, but seeing beyond the data as well. So I think pattern recognition is one of the great ability what Mercury actually can help with in the sign of Sagittarius. Mercury is writing, Sagittarius is publishing. So it's good for writing a book. Is it going to be easy to publish it? Maybe not so much, because it is a weak position for Mercury, but it is still a good position for that. It could be about loving a good education or having plenty of great discussions. Definitely, this is about philosophy overall, seeing the bigger picture, appreciating the knowledge in a way that makes them thirsty for more. It's about having a great argument with someone, or sometimes Mercury in Sagittarius is able to defend their cause to the bitter end. So I don't see this Mercury being such a big issue in a detrimental position. I think this transit wants to encourage us to imagine a brighter, braver future for ourselves. It's about giving kind of birth to something in a sense. And it's about capitalizing on your dreams, which is very Sagittarian. But I'd like to point out that Mercury also rules the dreams, because that's, again, the ability to travel between dimensions. So things like dream interpretation, you might start becoming a lot more interested in. So that's actually very possible also. Great, guys, thank you very much for joining me with this transit talk. I hope you've learned a lot about Mercury in Sagittarius. And the next video probably will be about Mars in Sagittarius. So thank you, everyone, and see you soon. Bye-bye.